He almost killed a Marine with simple scissors. That was what soldiers were shouting across the base near Fort Bragg when the new nurse arrived. Her name was Emma Collins, a young woman with short, dark hair and cold eyes that made even experienced soldiers uncomfortable. She barely spoke, never smiled, and always kept to herself, but that only attracted more attention from a group of soldiers from the Scorpions unit. The worst of them was Corporal Tyler Gray from Texas, an arrogant Marine who was used to everyone laughing at his stupid jokes. He constantly whistled at her, made dirty comments, and kept walking into the medical station for no reason. The other soldiers only encouraged him, saying the new nurse was acting tough. One evening, a violent storm rolled over the base. The wind bent the antennas, and the lights flickered as the generators struggled. Emma stayed alone inside the medical container sorting supplies when Tyler walked in with two of his friends. He smelled strongly of alcohol, even though drinking was forbidden on base. He blocked the door and grinned, saying that new girls have to go through initiation. Emma calmly asked him to step aside, but that only made the others laugh harder. Tyler grabbed her arm and shoved her against the table, ready to say something else, when suddenly the power went out completely. In the darkness, 3 heavy impacts echoed through the room, followed by a scream and the sound of metal hitting the floor. When the emergency lights came back on a few seconds later, Tyler was lying on the ground screaming in pain. Surgical scissors had pierced straight through his palm and pinned it to a wooden crate. One of his friends sat against the wall with a broken nose, while the other was too terrified to even look up. Emma stood in the middle of the room completely calm, as if nothing had happened, only the sleeve of her uniform slightly torn. She slowly looked at the soldiers and coldly said, "I warned you." But the biggest shock came later when Sergeant Michael Reeves checked her military file and suddenly turned pale after seeing a classified Pentagon stamp. The next morning, rumors spread across the base that the new nurse was not an ordinary soldier. Troops whispered in the mess hall while Tyler sat silently with his hand wrapped in bandages, too scared to even say her name. Sergeant Michael Reeves finally went to Colonel Daniel Harper demanding answers. At first, the colonel ordered him to forget everything, but after hearing what happened in the medical station, he let out a heavy sigh and pulled out an old black folder marked Top Secret. Inside were photographs of Emma Collins wearing combat gear beside special operators in the mountains of Afghanistan, standing near helicopters with no military markings, and soldiers whose faces had been crossed out with black ink. Reeves could hardly believe his eyes when he learned that Emma Collins had once been part of a secret unit called Night Ravens, a unit that officially did not exist. She worked as a combat medic, but during one operation near Kandahar, her team was ambushed by terrorists. When the soldiers ran out of ammunition, Emma dragged the wounded out of a cave and killed several attackers using only a knife and her bare hands. She was the only survivor of that mission. The colonel explained that after returning home, something inside her changed, and the Pentagon decided to keep her away from active combat operations. But later that same night, the entire base woke up to emergency sirens. Someone had slaughtered the guards near the western perimeter. Soldiers rushed outside with rifles under the pouring rain and found 2 dead sentries lying in pools of blood. A bloody trail stretched across the concrete, leading directly toward an old vehicle warehouse. When the Scorpions unit opened the doors, the building was dark and silent except for water dripping from the ceiling. Then Emma stepped out of the shadows, covered in blood, holding an assault rifle, her eyes filled with fear. She looked at Sergeant Reeves and quietly whispered, "They found me, and now nobody on this base is safe anymore."